Hello, 5th and 6th grade. This is your history video for Tuesday, May 18th. And we're going to be talking about feudalism today and how things were in the days of the knights. Get it? Days of the knights. Okay. Feudalism, it says the people of Europe had no longer had a strong central government after Charlemagne's kingdom divided. They passed into the period of feudalism. Under this system, wealthy landowners promised protection in exchange for service. People in Europe were in constant danger of attacks from invaders such as the Vikings, the Muslims, and the Asiatic nomads. Lords and vassals. Under the system of feudalism, kings granted estates called fiefs to nobles who had performed a service to the king. These nobles were known as lords. A lord would then choose nobles who did not own land to manage portions of the fief. These nobles were called vassals. In a special ceremony, the vassal knelt before the lord and took an oath of faithfulness, promising loyal service to the lord. Being asked to become a vassal was considered a great honor. In exchange for the vassal's service, the lord gave the vassal a piece of land. Although the fief still belonged to the lord, the vassal could use that piece of land freely. The vassal could also divide up the land and become a lord over lesser vassals. Divisions of land and loyalties often continued until the fief was the size of an average manor. Knights. Important to the protection of life and property during the Middle Ages was the knight. He wore metal armor from head to foot, and his horse was also heavily armored. He wielded a sword, a lance, and sometimes a battle axe. He carried a heavy shield to protect himself in battle. Nearly any nobleman would become a knight if he proved himself worthy. He had to be faithful and skilled in warfare. A boy pursuing knighthood could take the first step at the age of 7 by becoming a page. As a page, a boy went to live in the home of another noble to learn horsemanship and fighting skills. He also did chores for the lord and the lady of the castle. Around age 14, a page became a squire, a servant to the knight. His responsibilities then would include helping his master dress. I missed the part down there at the bottom. His responsibilities then would include helping his master dress, accompanying him on hunts or in battles, and caring for his master's horse. A squire continued his lessons in archery, swordsmanship, and lance fighting. When a squire turned 21, he could become a knight. Sometimes a squire was knighted instantly on the battlefield in recognition of unusual bravery. But most squires received knighthood in a special religious ceremony. The squire spent the entire night praying in the church. The next morning, other knights solemnly dressed him in his armor. The knight knelt before his lord, who touched him on the shoulder with a sword and declared him a knight. Knights of the Middle Ages promised to live by a strict code of behavior called chivalry. This code taught a knight to be generous, loyal to his lord, skillful and brave in battle, faithful to the Roman Catholic Church, protective of the weak and defenseless, and courteous to women. Sometimes, new knights went immediately into battle. When there were no battles going on, groups of knights might participate in tournaments. Jousting was one contest where pairs of rival knights met to compete. The goal of a joust was for one knight to knock the other off his horse with a blunt lance. All right, next page. I'm going all the way through 307 here. It says, while a knight was fighting, the best way to identify him was by his coat of arms. The coat of arms was an emblem painted on his shield. Each knight had a different coat of arms. Disadvantages of feudalism. Although feudalism provided order and protection in a time of upheaval and weak national leadership, it had some distinct disadvantages. First, it lacked the unity of a strong central government and military. This disunity could be felt in practical ways like frequent conflicts between rival lords and their armies. Second, the feudal lords had almost total control over the residents of their manors. In many legal matters, for instance, the lord's decision was final. It could not be appealed to a higher authority. Finally, peasants, the vast majority of people living under the feudal system, had very little freedom and opportunity, although their basic needs might be met. Life on the manor, page 305. The manor was the center of daily life during the Middle Ages. The manor system allowed wealthy nobles to defend their lands and the people living in them. In the early Middle Ages, the lord who owned the manor lived in the manor house, usually a large house made of logs. From about the 9th century on, lords lived in castles. The lord's home was built to offer a place of protection during attacks. The manor was self-sufficient. It had woods, fishing ponds, and fields for growing grain. Each manor usually had its own priest and skilled workers. Peasants produced their own food and made their own clothing. They grew crops and raised livestock. The manor had a village where the peasants lived. Each manor also had a church. Most people did not have to work on Sundays. People were also released from work on some of the special holy days are celebrated by the church. The word holiday comes from this medieval term. Most of the peasants living on a manor were serfs. They farmed the Lord's land, cleared the fields, built and repaired buildings, dug ditches, and fixed roads, and serf is your secret word. The serfs did not have many possessions. They used the Lord's mill to grind their grain into flour. They baked their bread in the Lord's oven. Often the Lord charged them a fee to use these services or these items. The homes of the serfs were small. Some were only about 15 feet long and 6 feet wide. Entire families ate, slept, and lived in the same room. Most serfs shared their homes with their sheep, cows, or pigs. The animals usually stayed in a separate area, partitioned off from the living area. Serfs were bound to the manor all their lives. They could leave only with the Lord's permission. Some peasants on manors were more privileged. They were the freemen, skilled craftsmen such as blacksmiths and carpenters. They paid less rent and worked fewer hours for the Lord. They were allowed to move from the manor if they wanted to. Two more pages here, but it's talking about life in feudal France, and you've got several areas here to look at. And it says, organized cities and governments. Weak kings could not protect people from invaders, so powerful lords gained control of large tracts of land and provided many of the government functions. Their power, it says, kings and popes challenged each other's authority. Kings claimed sovereignty in their national territory, but popes claimed sovereignty over all Roman Catholics. Justice, on the bottom left there, or, well, I guess the left side, says manor courts tried minor crimes like property damage and disorderly conduct. Serfs were charged with crimes against the Lord. Serfs could also sue each other. Witnesses were an important part of the trial process. Jurors made decisions. The Lord's representative determined punishments, typically a fine. Arts, sciences, and written language. Latin was the language of scholarship and was used in church services, in official, legal, and government documents, and in academic pursuits. In the later Middle Ages, languages spoken by the common people developed in written form, and literature was written for the common people. Religion. The Roman Catholic Church influenced almost every aspect of life. People were baptized into the church when they were born and were given last rites when they died. They were married by the church. They attended weekly services and paid tithes of their crops. Even leisure time was influenced by the church. Holidays celebrated important Christian events and saints. Medieval drama was designed to improve biblical knowledge. Medieval travel often included pilgrimages to holy sites. Citizenship. National identity was weak after the breakup of Charlemagne's empire. Since lords provided for people on their lands, tenants felt greater loyalty to the lords than to the country or king. And so you have some of the things there on the right side, and the chart says keys, themes of civilization, justice, power, and citizenship. Features of a civilization, they met three of those features: organized cities and government. They had art, science, and written language, and then religion. All right, that's it. You missed your secret word. You need to go back and listen because it was there. All right, have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.